How's it going, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to a video I'm pretty excited to make. So I took a poll over on my YouTube community tab the other day, asking if you guys would be interested in seeing a video where I go through and go over some of my favorite intros, cinematic intros from deck profiles that I made over the course of 2020 and in late 2019. And a large majority of you guys said yes, so I'm pretty pumped about that because a lot of these intros took a long time to put together, in terms of like editing. And you guys seem to had some, really good feedback towards it and really liked the intros that I did on deck profiles. So I figured it'd be a cool little video going back in time and looking over some of these intros, and I can kind of tell you guys sort of how they were made, the ideas behind them, why I like them so much, and things like that. So we're gonna get into this little like top 5 video, I guess, but before we do, here's a quick way you can support the channel. If you're looking for any TCG accessories, check out Imperium Duelist at the link below. They offer a wide variety of products such as sleeves, deck boxes, dice, binders, apparel, and playmats, including my very own playmat Blazing Permafrost, which is on sale now. You can get all of these amazing products for 10% off using my discount code WinterKills10off at checkout and support the channel in the process. And of course, if you're buying anything on TCG Player or Drawface.com, do not forget to check out the affiliate links I have to their sites down in the description below. If you guys are buying anything off those sites, don't forget to use those links, because if you do, a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back in the channel when you shop and check out using those said links. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the first one that I have selected here. And I'm just going to let these play out so you guys can fully watch them, and then I'll pause them afterwards and then go through little bits and pieces if I need to. So this first one here is from a Block Dragon BA test hand video from January 2020. All right, so that was the intro there, and I believe this video has about 573 likes, which is incredible. That is like an absurd number for likes on one of my videos, and a lot of the comments were really positive towards the intros, and that was one thing I really wasn't expecting when I started doing these. The overwhelming amount of support for just a little cinematic intro before a deck profile was incredible, and it definitely inspired me to keep going. And we're definitely going to be continuing it into 2021. And I'm very excited for you guys to see the first intro that I put out for 2021. But yeah, let's go back through this one here. Let me just lower the volume of this a little bit. The song I really do like. A lot of times, a lot of the inspiration for these deck profile intros will come from a song choice. And a lot of pretty much all of the music I use, all of the music I should say, is from Epidemic Sound. It's basically a royalty-free music subscription thing that you can sign up for. I think it's like $15 a month. It's totally worth it for me as somebody who does YouTube full-time. And I would recommend it to any other smaller creators looking for a good music selection. It's tons and tons of great music choices and sound effects. And it's $15 a month. And you avoid all the copyright and DMCA stuff that's going on right now, which is really good. So this part here, the main sort of idea behind this part here was obviously it was post January 2020 ban list. So that was when Sekka's Light had just gone to 1. So I wanted to sort of symbolize, the changes that I had to make to the deck to get it to where it is for this particular test hand video. And notice this is not an intro for a deck profile, because there was a short period of time. I think I only did it for 4 test hand videos where they had intros in front of them like this, but I decided to stop doing them on test hand videos, mainly because it was just beginning to be too much work, having to shoot an intro for every test hand video and having to shoot an intro for every deck profile. So I just wanted to, you know, consolidate it into only just being for deck profiles. So yeah, we'll let it play through here. And that little transition there, so I had the camera basically in my other hand following the binder opening. And then using the edge of the mat here on this table as a frame block transition. So basically where the edge of the mat is, as you can see here, it's basically being masked, you know, masking in the next video. Basically really easy to do in Premiere. And with these black bars here, they're like sort of like add like a cinematic feel to it. You don't have to use those. Sometimes I use them because I might have not filmed it properly to the point where I have a perfect edge going through the whole frame. It might cut off here and it doesn't look as good because you basically need a whole line to come through the entire video all the way through. And sometimes using these little black bars here do help with that. But basically just drawing a mask here and then, you know, keyframing it into the next shot here where the camera motion is continuing down with the Sekka's Light card, going back into the binder, and then cut to the beat every single time, and then the binder closes, and then more cutting to the beat every single time, sleeving up the new cards that we're replacing with Sekka's Light. And hindsight 2020, I ended up just playing the one of Sekka's Light for a decent amount of time because it's just still busted. I miss this deck so much, by the way. And this thing here too, there's some other things I would do differently going back now with the knowledge that I have. So a lot of these, the way you get this really nice slow motion is my camera that I'm filming this on. It can shoot 120 frames. It can also shoot 240 frames a second, which when you put it into a 24 frames a second timeline or a 60 frames a second timeline, it slows down drastically without having to manually slow it down in Premiere, which is the software that I use to edit, Adobe Premiere. That's how you get these really smooth shots. For the longest time, I was using the 240 frames a second, really super slow motion feature on my camera. But 240 frames isn't as malleable as 120 frames. There's a lot more cool stuff you can do with 120 frames per second as far as like in-camera transitions and stuff. But we'll talk more about what those are in a little bit. I could have definitely used a warp stabilizer here on this. As you can see, it's a little shaky. This, I loved doing these long, windy, you know, shots where I would go from card to card to card. And you'll notice the floating text here as well. That was done in After Effects, which is something I haven't done in a long time. I'm kind of rusty on how to do that. I recently did it in the studio tour video, the final studio tour video. I had to like look up how to do it again. But it's just like creating a text layer, and you have to do like camera tracking, like 3D camera tracking, and it like tracks the space and puts the text in. You have to create a whole, like, copy the text again, make it black, and turn the opacity down so it looks like it's creating a shadow. And that's basically what that is. And then it just looks like it's actual floating text in the scene, which I remember as soon as I found out how to do that, I was like, I have to do this in all my videos. And a lot of the inspiration for a lot of these edits come from people like Daniel Sheffer and Peter McKinnon, which are some big inspirations of mine in terms of like filming and editing styles. So huge shout outs to them, obviously. I'm sure some of you guys have probably heard of them, people like Peter McKinnon and Daniel Sheffer. Absolutely extremely talented guys, way better than anything I could ever do. Yeah, so that right there. And when I was talking about shooting in 240 frames, you can definitely do like speed ramps, which is what you're going to see here, but I think 120 frames is just more malleable. So right here, it's really quick, and then it slows down. So that's just a speed ramp, just gradually changing the speed, doing it again there. And then the sound effect you'll notice here as well. And yeah, so you hear a little sound effect in the background, just to kind of emphasize the camera pushing in here. And then close-up shot of the deck. I'd always try to end it on like a shot of the main deck and the extra deck on the table, like as if we were, you know, to transition right into the next part of the video, 2020, which is obviously the test stand video. And yeah, that was 1080-60. This was before I realized shooting in 24 frames is much better than shooting in 60 frames. It's for like video quality reasons, but yeah, really like this one. My favorite thing about this particular one is definitely the opening. You can hear the wind in the background. You might have been hear it better in the first playthrough of it. Sound effects coming in clutch. I'm 100% sure this was shot in 240 frames. Just how smooth everything is, how slow everything is. Like I said, 240 frames will give you really, really slow stuff. But like 120 frames, I think is just better. Because you can, it's just more like workable with in editing. So I'm probably doing a very bad job of explaining that, but we're gonna go to the next intro here, which I believe is from the DDD deck profile. All right, so this one is definitely up there as being one of my favorites of all time. Mainly because I really, really like the song. It's called How Did We by Toby Tranter. It's such a good song. It's got a really, really nice beat to it. And like I said earlier, I like editing to the beat and making cuts on the beat because it makes the whole thing flow a lot better. So you see here with the music starting, let me lower the volume on this little bit so I can talk over it easier. But you'll notice right here at the beginning, slowly pushing on the deck box because it's a deck profile. So I wanted to be like, you know, we got the deck box on the table. We're pulling the deck out that we're going to be profiling and showing some of its coolest boss monsters and things like that. Speed ramp, pull the deck out, slow it down as we show the Siegfried, right? And then speed ramp, and that was an in-camera transition right there. I don't think the last one had that. Yeah, so what we did in the previous one, where we use the frame block, that's something you have to do in editing software by using a mask and having an edge. That's something you need to make sure you shoot in advance because it's hard to like make an artificial frame block. But this is an in-camera transition. So basically what's going to happen here is, yeah, you see, and you hear the sound effect to go with it. That's why I like using sound effects a lot because they help emphasis the movement of the camera. And you know, transitions and things where otherwise they just kind of go unnoticed. So it's basically just a whip transition. So all I'm doing is taking the camera and just whipping it really fast to the right. You'll see that here. And then basically starting the next scene by whipping the camera in from left to right and basically putting those two clips together right when they're at their peak speed. And sometimes you can put a little cross dissolve, for those that know what that is, in between those two cuts to make it a little smoother if it's a little rough. But, you know, if done correctly, you have this really cool, unique transition that you can't really achieve in, like, software. I mean, you could probably achieve it in software. There is an artificial way to achieve it, which I think I show later. It doesn't look as nice, but that looks basically like I'm swinging the camera right to this instance here. And we go back here as well. This is just another slow like speed ramp. It slows down here and then it's going to rebound back, and you'll notice it gets blurry here. That's artificially added in as well to make it look like it's going super fast back to where it started, and then just fading here because I don't want to keep reusing the same whip transition, you know, transition after transition. So I just use a fade to black there, and then as soon as the beat drops, we have this really nice slow motion shot showing all the DDD monsters on the side here. Not a huge fan with how that ended. My desk actually, and you'll see it here. So I basically show like some other things I could have done differently to make them a bit better now with what I would do now. So my desk is up here. Like the top of my desk is just above where these cards are. So one thing I could have done is speed rammed it here and did a frame block transition essentially to go into the next scene, which is right here. But I guess with the way this next scene goes, one thing to keep in mind too is like if I'm transitioning up like that and using a frame block or something, It's nice to have the next scene sort of follow that same direction so it looks like it flows better. Otherwise, it'll look kind of clunky. Like if I whip to the right and the next scene whips in from the right and not from the left, it's just going to look really weird and disjointed. Here you can see the 3D tracked text again. Was really, really into doing that, so I used it a lot early on. And then we have Cursed King Siegfried. This I got lucky on. This was just me placing cards down. The camera was locked off on a tripod, and I kept speed ramping as I'd put the cards down. And lucky enough, the cards hitting the table after I did all the speed ramping just already hit the table to the beat, so I didn't have to do much work there. Slow motion shot across, fade and push in there, and I used a sound effect as well to really emphasize the camera movement right there. So that's pretty much that intro in a nutshell. Yeah, that's pretty much. This is one of my favorite intros, though. Probably, I wouldn't say it's my most favorite. But the song, I remember specifically really wanting to use this song for an intro, and this was the intro I decided to use it for. 482 likes, so you guys definitely seem to like it based on the the feedback. And this guy here, someone knows how to camera track, referring to the After Effects technique with the floating text in the background, which I said I really, really had a lot of fun doing, so I used it a lot. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the next intro now. All right, so this next intro is from a Shaddoll Invoked deck profile from February of 2020, and to this day, I think this might be my best intro. If it's not, it's definitely my second best, and 564 likes. So we'll go ahead and let this one play out. What's up, guys? All right, so yeah, that intro is pretty beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. Again, the song is called Genesis by Ooey, I think, Ooyy. For anybody who wants to know the name of the song, fantastic song, and Ooey is an incredible artist on Epidemic Sound. It makes a lot of great music, and I use a lot of his music in a lot of my videos. And this one here is no exception, obviously. But I mean, where do we begin, right? We'll start at the very, very beginning here. I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit. So yeah. So it's just a slow motion panning across Mechaba, a little speed ramp over here to Caliga, and then again we have that same in-camera transition, but this time, it's like we're going back in time almost, because we're like in the same position that we were at the beginning of the video by looking at the table that we're on. So it's speed ramp, and then it's a whip cut there. Same thing happens there again on the next scene here. Yeah, so right here, Winda, push forward to construct. And then instead of doing a whip, we just cut a hard cut onto the beat. That little ding noise or whatever. And then same technique here. The blur, the artificial blur added in as we go over to the other side here. Because, what we could do essentially here, we got a little head there. Something you could do is just, let it slowly go across the whole thing and orbit around it, but to sort of like save time, you can just do a quick speed ramp and get to the other side there. And then with the beat, as you would expect, I'm going to lower this volume down a little bit. I don't want this to be overpowering my voice, but the music is good. So we hit with the beat, and these cards here, these cards are staggered for a reason. Because the focus of the camera is locked here. Because using higher frame rates, I think with this particular camera at 240 frames, the autofocus doesn't work. So you have to do, and that's not via like a malfunction. That's just, you can't have autofocus on when you're shooting that high frame rate. A lot of cameras will have that feature, I guess, or lack of a feature until you get to really, really, really expensive cameras. But consider the plane of focus like a line. So here's the front of the camera, and here's that line. So everything at or around this line is in focus, and as you move farther away, it gets out of focus. So that's why the Wendy is back a little bit, and the two other cards are a little bit forward, because as the camera slowly pulls back, this one will gradually come out of focus, the other cards will come into focus, and then they'll all go out of focus. I just didn't want them to all be out of focus for a long period of time, you know, to last until the transition happens here, which is going off the edge of the table, and it's very quick. It's basically just a speed ramped frame block with the edge of the table, and I don't know if I'll be able to catch that in super, super slow motion. But then it's basically the camera's falling down, and we're falling down again here, following that same downward motion with the cards in my hand and the camera in my other hand. And I have my knuckles out a little bit as I'm gripping the camera. So when it hits the table, I'm not like slamming the camera directly against the table, but I'm using it as a cushion, and it'll create that vibration there. So it looks like the camera's like slamming onto the table, and there's that, you know, impact. And you can hear it in the sound effect too. Boom, it slams, and then it goes dark. This is probably one of my favorite edits I think I've ever done for an intro. I'm gonna pause it right before it happens. All right, so yeah, Shaddoll Fusion, obviously a huge staple card within Shaddoll, so I wanted to do something with it. And it has a circular pattern, mainly like right here where I draw with my mouse. And this is another, like, I don't know what to call it exactly, but like a mask transition where I'm going to push through to the card, and I'm going to actually slow this down because it does go kind of quick. And I'm going to mute this because it's going to sound weird. But yeah, so we're pushing in really fast. It's kind of speed ramped, and we're using that blur onto that camera blur effect. And we're getting really close to the card. And then it basically just kind of cuts to a circular mask into the next frame. And then basically the previous frame is just getting so big to the point on a scale size, it's just opening up like this window here as we push in to the next frame. So if we watch that back, of course, at normal speed, it's going to look like we're just literally pushing the camera right through the card, just like that. Yeah, and obviously you can notice it more once you're watching it really slowly, but most people are going to be watching at normal speed. And then we push through to these monsters, dip to black again. And this is cool, because this actually wasn't like an edit, per se. I literally just had my camera in front of like an Imperium deck box, and it just looked completely black based on the lighting. And then we just kind of push out of it, and then cut with the feet, just making it go black like it's flickering. And then here you're going to see an artificial whip cut. This is done in Premiere. This isn't done with the camera because I just wanted a nice sweeping shot. And you'll notice it's basically, here's this frame and just whipping out with the next frame. That's done artificially. That's not in camera. That's in post. And then just following their sweeping shot of the card sliding on the table. So there's a lot of stuff going on this one. The song, I think, really does piece it together. Boom, boom, boom. And then my favorite part still has to be pushing into the Shaddoll Fusion, but yeah. Or maybe just the card, like the deck hitting the table as well. And you'll notice too, the lighting. Like pretty much all the lights in my room are off. I think I have maybe one key light or one of these lights here, which you can actually see in the background of my face cam. Little aperture light, and they can change RGB colors. So you can see there's the green lighting on my hand there. And if I go back, yeah, you can see here, I think for a split second, maybe not, but there is some purple light being cast here in the background. All right, so that's that one. Now we're going to take a look at the next one, which I think is another DDD one. All right, yeah, so that was about a 50-second intro, which I usually don't leave them that long, but sometimes if I'm really on a roll, like, you know, I'll go a little bit longer on the intros. I know some people don't like when they get to be a minute long, but sometimes I just have fun and let loose. But so this opening shot here, this was right when Gilgamesh, I think, came out. I think this was like the first official video I did with a physical copy of Gilgamesh, which is obviously a big deal. 511 likes here on this one, 15,000 views, which is just absolutely absurd. Thank you for the support on all of these, by the way. So this opening here is basically, I'm playing around with the camera focus. So right now the camera is not on autofocus, otherwise this wouldn't be able to work. It's locked on a certain focal length, and I'm basically using the zoom in feature, the optical zoom feature, not a digital zoom. That's why it's such a clear, crisp picture. And I'm basically just slowly moving the zoom rocker on the top of the camera back as we pull out of that very, very blurry image. You're kind of like, wait, what is it? What is the card? What is that card? I can't see yet. Oh, it's Gilgamesh. Wait, what's surrounding him? You got Wave High Caesar, Kali Yuga, and as it backs out further, and it just fades to black. And then we have the more of that sort of sweeping camera angle action happening here. But you can sort of see how I try to time the speed ramp fully coming to a halt with that beat drop here. And it's just... And then using, again, the sound effects to create more emphasis and the whip to, like, make it seem like there's speed happening there. And then... And also using the blur as well, very subtly there. And then whip transition, in-camera transition, again, just panning it really far, hard from right to left, and then coming into the next one, right to left. And then, boom, over to the Borload Savage. Same thing's going to happen here. And then that was basically an in-camera transition, but instead of going left to right, going up, and then starting the next one, coming from the bottom up to the card. They can, the up and down ones can be a bit tricky, because, like, I'm filming on a table, so I have to, like, sometimes almost, like, put the lens really close to the mat and bring it up to the card. And it can be hard when you're whipping the camera at like a speed like that, not like super fast, obviously, like to the point where it might fly out of your hands, but you know, keep enough speed to the point where it looks like a really fast whip and you get a nice cut, a clean cut in post. You got to make sure when you come out of it, your hands are pretty stable, so you get the card in frame. So that's a bit of a challenge as well. And thinking too with Premiere, there are workarounds, but when you use speed ramping in Premiere, for those that know what that is, you can't stabilize it unless you nest the clip, and that can create some weirdness, because sometimes the warp stabilizer, which creates the really smooth shots artificially without using a gimbal, sometimes it can be a little wonky. It's like a coin flip to see whether or not it works properly. We're going to go over here. It's a little out of frame, but sometimes these shots take a lot of takes just to get it right. And there was an in post-processing transition there. You might be able to tell the difference after a little while. And go over here. This was a filming error on my behalf. Sometimes it's hard to judge how long you need to be doing certain things, because you're like, oh, I can speed it up to 1,000, 2,000%. But the higher you speed it up, the more jittery it looks. You'll see here. So speeding up really fast because it was taking too long. The intro's already 40 seconds at this point. So basically, to fix that, I would have just needed to move the camera in person really fast, or bring it around and slam it into the card. Not actually, but to the point where it creates a black picture, or close enough, because if it's not super completely black, you can just turn the exposure all the way down in post. And then you hear that sound effect again. And then basically at this point, you can bring the camera out of wherever else, so long as it starts in that black spot, because it's basically like camera goes here and comes out in a completely different scene, as you see here. Again, main deck, extra deck, like we're ready to start the profile, just like that. If I really wanted to pay attention, I could have made sure I had Necro Slime and Gilgamesh on top of the deck. But I guess I wasn't paying that much attention there for that specific spot. So really, really like that intro. Mainly because that opening part with this focus part was really cool. It is a bit of a creative challenge as well for a lot of these deck profiles, because after I was doing so many of these intros, like I kind of was using the same techniques over and over again, and it was getting a little bit of a creative drain. And there's definitely a few intros I put out there that I'm definitely not happy with whatsoever. And that was just because I was just creatively exhausted from doing these. There was a few times where I definitely contemplated where I was like, I don't want to do an intro for this one, and I just kind of threw a basic one together. Just because it just felt like weird that I'd have a deck profile that just all of a sudden didn't have an intro in front of it. It's hard to say, you know, keep the creative well full, if you will, instead of letting it run dry. So that's that one. 511 likes, only 5 dislikes. Those are people that just turned their phone upside down and wanted to like again, I assume. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and look at the next intro here. All right, so this is a Infinitrack train deck profile from Post Eternity Code, and I remember this one specifically because I did kind of go ham on the sound effects, and I really wanted to do more with sound effects because they really enhance the visual experience. This video having about 243 likes. I mean, it is trains. It's a bit of a less popular video, and I did mention, yeah, listen to the intro with headphones on for the best effect. So glad I read this comment before watching the vid. The intro was epic. So yeah. Not just to gas myself up, but like there was a lot of sound effects in there that you really have to pay attention to. So we're going to go ahead and let it roll here. Yeah, that one was very, very sound effect heavy, as you were able to tell. And there was also some cool, like, creative ways to go to the beat other than just making cuts. So we'll go to this one here. We just have the opening sequence here with the Megaclops. Obviously, he's the star of the show in terms of, like, Infinitrack. Boss monsters are concerned. And you can already hear, like, the crumbling rocks and the heavy machinery sound effects in the background. Slicer, you have kind of like a rock saw or some machinery revving up. And more rocks crumbling. In here you have the sound of flowing water. And then here, a push-in. Again, it's just a simple cut to the beat to get to this point, and then a push-in. And then you can just hear the sounds of like some cannons, I think they actually were in the background. And you see there, instead of just trying to cut to the beat, that little like... that little vocal part, you can see I just flip the video horizontally and flip it back. And then make a cut here as well. This is pretty interesting as well because the way the song sounded, it kind of like sounded like the song was fading in and then coming back and then fading out and coming back. So I kind of wanted to sort of replicate that same thing here in the video. That kind of like, I don't know what to call it, like rising and falling and then coming back with that snap sound. More of that, you know, snaking through the cards with the camera with a blur. And then there, that was just a simple, you know, in-camera transition. There, I feel like I should have done that with maybe like a pan to the right. I feel like that would have worked better than going up, because it would just follow the motion of the way the camera was going, you know, from one card to the other. So that's, I think, one thing I would have done differently. That I wish I probably would have done, because that looks like the camera's just completely static. Yeah, so that I should have probably done a little orbiting shot around that. This I kind of just like reversed it, I guess, and cut back here. The reason I think I did that was because like I was trying to keep up with the beat of the song, and the shot wasn't lasting long enough. So instead of going back and shooting another shot, I kind of just like reversed it. And then cut to this shot here, sped around it this time, and then that one I feel like lingered on a bit too long. This one definitely did as well. So you can see it's cut to the beat as the beat starts to pick up pace here for the drop. And then instead of just cutting to, you know, different points around the card as the camera slowly pans around it, just flipping again horizontally there to kind of like come up with something interesting to show. And then pushing in the train sound, I really love that. And then instead of like going into the cards to create the transition here, I pull away, and then this camera's still pulling out here when you see it there. So that one, there's definitely some clunkiness to it, but the sound effects I think definitely help pull it together. for sure. 100%. I realize I'm doing these out of order, not like going from my, number 5 to number 1, but these are just, some of my top favorites, I guess, to make things a little easier and a little less complicated. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the next one. All right, so this one, really, really cool. Played around with a lot of props there, as you can see. Well, mainly just one prop, but yeah, as you can tell, this is also Mermail profile, and this will probably be the first profile of 2021. Will probably be Mermail profile as well, as I've just uploaded a new video that I forgot to post about, but I'm recording right now, so we'll deal with it later. So yeah, as you can see, I have this tin here, the 2019 Megatin, I believe, with one of those little RGB lights in it. Obviously shining a nice, like, kind of blue light there as it slowly pans around. The music choice is wonderful, too. Pulling the lid off, what's inside, right? Deep Sea Diva comes out. Got to show off the Deep Sea Diva, star of the show. And then, as the music sort of picks up a bit, the beat sort of drops. The slowdown fully sets in, and you'll notice here the orange light that's coming from one of those lights again. I chose orange mainly because it contrasts blue really well, and you'll see here again, it's picking up because you can hear the beat in the background really starting to pick up, so I wanted to sort of speed it up. And then I believe there's, yeah, that's another in post in editing software transition there. Didn't have an actual copy of Crocosaur. I didn't really feel too good about doing the intros with the proxies because they look kind of awful, honestly, with this big sample word there. But this is when Eternity Code was delayed by a little while, so any real Etco cards we didn't fully have our hands on yet. This is from May as well. 213 likes on this one. And then just a simple speed ramp, slowing it down, speed ramping again. And then cut to the beat, cut to the beat. There's Deep Sea Area Proxy. This one's pretty cool too. Dragoons is kind of a little blurry in the background, but still enough that you can make it out. And then there's that frame block transition there. Really, really love doing those. One thing I got into the habit of doing was this particular style where it would frame block and then push in. It would be revealing a scene where it's pushing into some other point of interest here. Right, just like that. Really like that. Plain and simple. And to the point. One of the main things I really like about this is this the beginning of the intro. Very calming. Right, you got that record static sound in the background too, which I didn't add, that's just in the song. I was thinking maybe I could have done some sort of sound effect with pulling the lid off, but it didn't. I don't think it really needs it though, to be honest. I think the only thing I would do differently with this one, I would keep this 100%. I think here, maybe I would have been better to have the camera locked off on a tripod or something. That I do like. That's fine. I think maybe I would have done an actual in-camera transition, but yeah. Very, very good for this intro. Really like it. This part here could have maybe done a little bit better, but I do like the blue lighting that it had, so overall, pretty solid intro. Again, if you guys have any questions about any of these things, the things I didn't answer, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But we're going to move on to the last intro for this video. All right, so as you guys can see there, I I was also trying a different style too of deck profile where I have like the face cam at the beginning and talk, but that's like besides the point. So this is a more recent one, as you can see. It's from November of 2020, and I really, really like the song. The song choice, again, I think makes the intro really, really good. You can have some mediocre shots in there. If the song's kind of banging, I feel like it makes up for it. And I do have a really good song picked out for the next intro, by the way. But you can see just playing around with, you know, cuts, you know, black to color, or black to picture, things like that. Bringing the film bars in again. This was like, this was from coming back from like a time of like not making profiles for like maybe a month or so, or a good break from doing these. And again, still feeling that creative exhaustion sometimes that comes with making these things. And I want to just kind of go back to basics, right? Just slowly rotating shots, cut to the beat, and not doing any speed ramping here allows me to add a warp stabilizer to get really, really smooth and stable shots. Cut to the beat again there. The beautiful Italian mech knights. And then same thing here. This is slowly rotating the camera in here. Very nice. And then, yep, in-camera transition there. Just to these particular cards, yeah. Not so much going on there technically, as you can see. All it takes is some nice slow motion shots, cut to the beat. Maybe a little creative license there with the, you know, the in and out cuts. And then even as simple as here when we get to the Pot of Extravagance, again, showing off some of the more prevalent cards in the deck, is having the camera tilted, and then it kind of just corkscrews in a little bit instead of just making a standard push and shot. So yeah, that's that one. Again, really, really basic intro there. I think there are definitely some intros that I didn't show. Obviously, didn't show all of the intros, as I don't think I'd be able to. But there is one in particular here that I think I want to point out. I think it might have been this Stellar Knight intro here. I'll let this play out real quick. And again, there you guys could probably notice at this point a lot of the same techniques that I was using in that one. But that one I really did like a lot because of that opening sequence where you have the frame block and then pushing into the Delta Rose Triver. So yeah, I don't want this video to be you know, any longer than it already is, but those are some of my favorite intros, definitely going down memory lane. I think the first intro that I ever did, a cinematic intro, was for, I believe, this one right here, from December 21st, 2019. So quite a while ago at this point. Very, very basic stuff happening here. First ever whip transition, and that's pretty much it for that one. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for the feedback, of course. Definitely helps me out quite a bit when I wanted to make new videos, asking you guys what you want to see. So thank you for everybody that voted on that poll. Thank you guys for all the support over the years, of course. Thank you for all the support on every video I've ever done with an intro on it, whether it's been good or bad. You know, obviously you're your own worst critic, so I think some of these definitely need more work, and hopefully in 2021, you know, carrying throughout this year, we can keep up the quality and make them even better than they were last year. At least that's the goal anyway. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and as always, we're gonna signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, a huge shout out goes to our Divine Level channel members here on YouTube, and they are Academic Thick, Zors, and Cadillac 84. As always, thank you guys so much for your continued and generous support of the channel.